some videos?
We're going to be watching some videos and seeing some photos, and I know we had discussed at an earlier hearing that there was going to be a period in the case where we wanted to present video evidence and some of the other evidence that wouldn't be coming in through a witness, so we'll do that now. Your Honor will be happy to hear that we are well ahead of time, and then given what I had said this morning about the witnesses who abruptly pulled out, that gives us some time back as well, so I think we're going to be good. I don't think the evidence presentation will go all the way through to 5:30, but we've already spoken to counsel for respondents, and we would start with our next witness tomorrow morning.
Did you bring popcorn?
I did not. I don't know if it's going to be that scintillating, but
I think the popcorn is
perhaps you're right as to why we might need it. But just in terms of timing, I wanted to let Your Honor know why we don't have that witness here at the ready. The estimates for cross-examination, and I'm not going to fault them at all, were quite a bit longer, shall we say, than the cross-examinations actually were. Yep. So we're well, as I said, ahead of schedule right now. So
we'll just do whatever video evidence you have, and then we'll break for the day?
Yes, and there will be some discussion, I think, of how you would like us to present some of the January 6th report findings. I could read them, but we can talk about whether that makes sense to do in terms of good use of everyone's time. But Mr. Gessler has said that he has a procedural matter that he wanted to raise before the entertainment begins.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I want to go back to our status conference. I believe it was last week. They're all beginning to blend together. And we talked a little bit about experts. We have, Your Honor had said, if there's a way for us to get an expert, the door was open to testimony next week sometime. And I think we've identified an expert on political communications as a rebuttal expert for Professor Simi. May we present that? We'll produce a report. I can't give you an exact timeline, but I know the timeline's going to be within a few days. I understand it's pretty fast. But I'm asking if we would be able to do that, Your Honor.
And do the petitioners have any objection?
And Your Honor, I just sprung this on them, so this is the first they've heard of it as well.
We do have an objection, Your Honor. Our expert on this subject is going to be testifying tomorrow. He's not obviously going to have an opportunity or ability to respond, and they are going to be able to tailor any sort of expert report to his testimony that's offered tomorrow. We think that is unfair. They've had ample amount of time to find somebody and have not. I don't think next week was meant for an entirely new expert. I think it may have been meant for if Mr. Heafy needed to testify next week, or if there was some fact witness, but this is introducing a whole new kettle of fish into the case.
Okay, I'm going to let them. Everything has been on an extremely compressed schedule, and I know it's been hard for both parties to get witnesses to appear on that schedule, but I will allow, so this is to respond to Professor Simi?
Correct.
If Professor Simi wants to have a rebuttal to that, which would normally happen in his testimony, and wants to do so by phone, by video next week, the court will allow that so long as that rebuttal testimony is disclosed. Are we getting a report?
Yes, of course, Your Honor. No, we're going to work very hard to get that. I'm not looking to do an ambush here, but we're going to, we've got some communications. We have to firm that up, and we're going to work like crazy to get something to petitioners that will be a meaningful report. Understanding the court's framework from before, that if there's not an opinion that's in the report, it cannot be elicited on the stand. So we're prepared to abide by that and go forward.
And Your Honor, as for us, I assume, and I would ask if it's not the correct assumption, that Professor Simi doesn't have to now submit a rebuttal report in advance of his rebuttal testimony in response to the testimony that we don't yet know what it is going to be.
Let's see what this rebuttal report looks like before we get too deep into this conversation. But I understand that normally, in a normal course, Professor Simi would have a chance potentially to rebut, and that he would do so when he's on the stand, and he's obviously not going to have that opportunity. So we'll do what it takes to level the playing field.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And is Mr. Heafy coming or testifying?
He is available to testify remotely on Friday, so I expect that I would do a short direct with Mr. Heafy, and then opposing counsel would be able to cross-examine.
Okay. So he'll be testifying after?
Yes, he'll be, I think, testifying from Washington, D.C.
Okay. So, the videos.
Yes, so I've tried to limit this to exhibits that Your Honor has already ruled on, saying that they would be admitted or were conditionally admissible. There are a few. I raised one earlier today that has not been ruled on yet, but I will obviously raise that when I get to it. So,
okay, is that the videos which were embedded in the tweets?
Yes, those two, Your Honor. I think there's one of those in here. I don't know if it's both in here, so I was going to raise that when we got there. But I was thinking of the Giuliani and Eastman speech. Again, President Trump referred to that speech, or those speeches explicitly within his in-lip speech. It was the justification that President Trump gave and provided to the crowd on that day that Vice President Pence had the ability to reject certification of the electoral votes. And so it was a critical piece of that speech. And President Trump actually selected them as speakers before he took the stage. And again, we're not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted.
I understand you're not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted, but I do have kind of fairness issues with having a speech of someone who then isn't available for cross-examination, though I suppose Mr. Gessler would have a lot better chance of getting Mr. Eastman and Mr. Giuliani to respond. So I'm still thinking about it.
And Your Honor, to be fair, I think to everyone, I don't think anybody's getting either of those two to testify, other than to assert their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, given that they're both currently under indictment. But again, if it had been a document that President Trump held up and said, here's the proof that I have that Vice President Trump or Vice President Pence can decertify the election, I think he would allow it in as part of the speech. He refers to it, and it comes right before his speech that day. It is an integral part of what he did in his plan to incite the riot. And obviously, Your Honor can take it for the weight it warrants.
Any response, Mr. Kessler?
Your Honor, at the end of the day, we're talking about President Trump's, or that actually, quote, engaged in a insurrection. And referral to other speakers is not President Trump speaking. It's not. And it's not President Trump's engagement. And so we would continue to object to that, just as President Trump may refer to many things and has referred to many things over 6-8 years of a political career, or more. But not every one of them, we would submit none of them, are admissible as his statement, or as his embracing of that statement.
I would say that is generally true, but this was the speech right before him on the ellipse on January 6th, speeches that he planned to have there that day, speeches that he referred to explicitly within his own speech as what gave him the justification for saying that the Vice President could decertify. It's incredibly important context to understand what President Trump was saying.
Your Honor, I simply said the rules of evidence don't change on January 6th.
No, they don't.
They remain the same.
I'm going to continue to ponder it while I also simultaneously watch the other videos.
Okay. Well, I was going to start and try and break this up into two different categories. The first is additional evidence that there was an insurrection on January 6th, and then additional evidence that President Trump engaged in that insurrection.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with an admitted exhibit, plaintiff's 133.
Okay. 133 will be officially admitted.
And Exhibit 133 is a series of photos taken by Nate Gowdy. He was a photographer that was present at the ellipse and then at the Capitol on January 6th. And we'll just run through a few of those. The nice thing about these photos is they have a timestamp on the upper left hand side. So I just want to look at a few. So let's go to page 4. And the timestamp there is 11:38 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you see there somebody there with Pence has the power. And again, this is why I think it's so important, the Giuliani speech. Photos of individuals in camo and gear with those plates that were discussed earlier.
So, Mr. Kessler, I told you they'd get their turn.
I'm glad to know the ambulances are equal opportunity interrupters.
Yeah. Mr. Kessler, just make sure you speak into the microphone.
Yes. And then let's go to page 17, which is from 2:14 p.m. that afternoon. And you see people holding on and carrying away the bike racks. At 2:36, and this is after the tweet about Vice President Pence, you see the tear gas and chemical irritant and individuals swarming the Capitol. Here again is another photo that shows individuals carrying, the attackers carrying the Trump flags and various Trump paraphernalia. And that's page 26, 3:27 p.m. This is page 30 at 3:55 p.m. And you see the sign there, certify honesty, not fraud, reflecting the claims of fraudulent election. And you see again the Trump paraphernalia and flags and the crowd proceeding towards the Capitol. And then here on page 37 is a photo at 5:07, and you see still Trump paraphernalia. It's getting dark outside, and you see the tear gas and chemical irritant there as well. Now I'd like to play a portion of Plaintiff's Exhibit 90.
Your Honor, may I just make one clarification? These are being admitted over our objections. We would object to counsel's characterization of them, not the evidence. So, for example, the people lined up at the vests. I mean, did the photographer say, "Hey, come on in, let me get a photo of you all," or were they locked arm in arm trying to storm the Capitol? There's just no context. So, we're going to make that objection to the record, and we will ask the court not consider counsel's characterization of these photos because it doesn't come from a witness. Counsel's statements are not evidence. Thank you.
Your Honor, I'm next going to play a clip from Plaintiff's Exhibit 94. It's a video that was admitted by Your Honor on October 27th. Part of it, I think, has already been played in the opening, so I'll play only a portion of it here.
94 is admitted over objection.
Vamos a prender o We have police on the Capitol. Police on the Capitol. We have a level.
And so I think you heard other portions of Exhibit 94 during openings, so I won't play those here. Next, I'd like to show Exhibit 105.
Exhibit 105, exhibit.
And this is an exhibit Your Honor has said was admitted. It is a transcript of the closing argument in the...
Did I rule on this previously, or am I jumping back?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's stipulated. You have not ruled on it. It was stipulated.
Okay.
And so this is a transcript of the closing argument in the second impeachment trial. This is from President Trump's lawyer, Mr. Vanderveen, and he says, "Yet the question before us is not whether there was a violent insurrection of the Capitol. On that point, everyone agrees." And I've got video of that as well. We hadn't marked that. I can play that, but to be fair, I haven't provided that to the other side, and we can wait if they'd like, but it's just video of the same statement.
Can I need video of the same statement?
Thank you. Now I want to play video from Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. Again, not the entire video, but this is video from January 6th. The timestamp on the upper right.
There you go. There he is. Maybe no one's
So I moved to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, as well as Plaintiff's Exhibit 105. I forgot about that one.
Exhibit 1, the other one you said was 105?
105, Your Honor.
105 is stipulated, so admitted.
Your Honor, I don't think number 105 was stipulated. I think it was. I think you corrected.
That's what my notes say as well.
Again, number 95, number 94, number 1 are all objection. And I'll simply renew my objection with respect to the first video you saw. That's a movie production. There are sound overlays on it. It's a montage. It's a good movie production, and it was produced by the January 6th Commission for the purpose of being a good movie production. Shouldn't be evidence here. We don't have an opportunity to cross-examine. We don't know the full context of each one of those videos. We've not been able to pull them apart. We've not been able to pull the witnesses or the people who actually took those videos, or the actual context of those radio transmissions, and how it's all been assembled together. So, just as I would submit that you wouldn't accept a Steven Spielberg production for the truth we never asserted. Maybe this rises to that level of quality. But you wouldn't accept this one either. So that's going to be our objection.
You might if it was documentary footage, which is what we have here.
We don't think Michael Moore would be accepted. Michael Moore's documentaries would be accepted by this court either if you want to do that.
May I first minute?
And so we just looked at a portion of Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. I want to play a portion of Plaintiff's Exhibit 92. Again, that was ordered admissible on October 27th. I move to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit 92.
92 will be admitted.
And now I want to show a page from Plaintiff's Exhibit 26, which is the GAO report from February of 2023 regarding the investigation of that entity into the Capitol security during January 6th. This is one that was admitted as well.
Stipulated, I believe. And it's admitted now.
And I'd just like to go to page 7. And this is a finding from that document. In the months leading up to the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, there were reported efforts to organize large groups of protesters to travel to Washington, D.C. to dispute the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. Over the course of about 7 hours, more than 2,000 protesters entered the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, disrupting the peaceful transfer of power and threatening the safety of the Vice President and members of Congress. The attack resulted in assaults on at least 174 police officers, including 114 Capitol Police and 60 D.C. Metropolitan Police Department officers. These events led to at least 7 deaths and caused about $2.7 billion in estimated costs. As of September 2022, more than 870 individuals have been arrested on charges, including entering a restricted federal building, assaulting officers with a deadly weapon, and seditious conspiracy.
And so when you say that this page is page 7 of the exhibit, even though it says page 1?
It's page 7 of the document, but page 1, I guess, of the report. It probably has some little I's and little 2 I's.
Okay.
And now I wanted to point to just a couple of the January 6th report findings that Your Honor has found conditionally admissible. And the first is finding 119, which is at page 35 of Plaintiff's Exhibit 78. More than 140 Capitol and Metropolitan Police were injured, some very seriously. A perimeter security line of Metropolitan Police intended to secure the Capitol against intrusion broke in the face of thousands of armed rioters, more than 2,000 of whom gained access to the interior of the Capitol building. A woman who attempted to forcibly enter the chamber of the House of Representatives through a broken window while the House was in session was shot and killed by police guarding the chamber. Vice President Pence and his family were at risk, as were those Secret Service professionals protecting him. Congressional proceedings were halted, and legislators were rushed to secure locations. So that's the evidence I wanted to present now on whether there was an insurrection. I'd like to turn now to whether President Trump engaged in that insurrection.
I'm doing this for the record, Your Honor. We're going to object to that January 6th finding. We're particularly going to object to the characterization that the protesters were armed. All the testimony you've heard today from police officers was that they weren't armed with any firearms or knives or weapons. So that's our judgment.
And I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, and thank you for your objection, but just because I allow a finding in does not mean that I am accepting it as true.
I understand, Your Honor, and it's our job to explain to you why that is the correct finding.
But I just want to, in case you didn't hear me say it before, I just want to make sure that just because I allow in the January 6th report does not mean that I agree with all of the findings.
I understand that.
So now turning to the evidence on engagement. Wanted to start with Plaintiff's Exhibit 47. These are clips from President Trump's speech from election night, or really the next morning, so very early, November 4th, 2020.
I believe that Exhibit 47, correct?
Yes.
I want to thank the American people for their tremendous support. Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it.
So that's the first clip, and I'm not going to play the entire speech. It's about 9 minutes long. So the second.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
And I apologize, you said this is all from the same speech that was 90 minutes long on the morning after the election?
It was only 9 minutes long, Your Honor, so I wanted to spare you the whole speech. We could play it if you want, but just wanted to play those two portions.
Only if Mr. Kessler wants to play the whole thing.
You never know, Your Honor. Put that right there.
Okay.
And so now I want to move on to Plaintiff's Exhibit 148, which has already been admitted. That is the compilation of President Trump's tweets over time. And I want to start with page 12. And I'm going to walk through these. Mr. Olson walked through some of these during his opening, but I will walk through more of them here. So November 5th, 2020, this is the morning after the speech we just saw. At 9:12 a.m., he tweets, "Stop the count." November 8th, a few days later, "We believe these people are thieves. The big city machines are corrupt. This was a stolen election. Best pollster in Britain wrote this morning that this clearly was a stolen election, that it's impossible to imagine that Biden outran Obama in some of these states." Next one, same page. "Where it mattered, they stole what they had to steal." And that, too, I believe is November 8th. Next page, page 13, November 9th. "Nevada is turning out to be a cesspool of fake votes. At M. Schlapp and at Adam Laxalt are finding things that when released will be absolutely shocking." The next day, November 10th. "People will not accept this rigged election." Next page, 14. "A guy named Al Schmidt, a Philadelphia commissioner and so-called Republican rhino, is being used big time by the fake news media to explain how honest things were with respect to the election in Philadelphia. He refuses to look at a mountain of corruption and dishonesty. We win." November 12th. Report, "Dominion deleted 2.7 million Trump votes nationwide. Data analysis finds 221,000 Pennsylvania votes switched from President Trump to Biden. 941,000 Trump votes deleted. States using Dominion voting systems switched 435,000 votes from Trump to Biden." On page 15, November 13th, Georgia Secretary of State, a so-called Republican rhino, "Won't let the people checking the ballots see the signatures for fraud. Why? Without this, the whole process is very unfair and close to meaningless. Everyone knows that we won the state. Where is Brian Kemp?" Go down to the bottom of page 16, November 14th. "What are they trying to hide? They know, and so does everyone else. Expose the crime." November 14th, page 17, 11:17 p.m. "Antifa scum ran for the hills today when they tried attacking the people at the Trump rally because these people aggressively fought back. Antifa waited until tonight, when 99% were gone, to attack innocent MAGA people. DC police, get going. Do your job and don't hold back." November 16th, page 18. Dominion is running our election. Rigged." They go on. December 1st, 2020, page 27. Rigged election. Show signatures and envelopes. Expose the massive voter fraud in Georgia. What is Secretary of State and at Brian Kemp, Georgia, afraid of? They know what we'll find. And Your Honor, this was one of the tweets with the embedded video that I had talked about earlier.
I'm going to allow videos that I tweeted. So
This is plaintiff's 126, so we move for admission of it.
It's all gone too far. All of it. Jerry Jimmy asked Chris Press, a statesman who were in system, to be shot. A 20-something tech in Gwinnett County today has death threats and news, put out saying he hung for treason because he was transporting a report on factions from EMS to a county computer so he could read it. It has to stop. Mr. President, you have not condemned these actions or this language. Senators, you have not condemned this language or these actions. This has to stop. We need you to step up, and if you're taking position of leadership, show some. My boss, Senator Ransburg, his address is happening. They have people doing carriage for their house. They have people come onto their property. Trisha, his wife, for 40 years, has used sexualized threats through her cell phone. It has to stop. This is elections. This is the backbone of democracy. And all of you, if I said a damn word, are complicit in this. I can't begin to explain the level of anger I have right now over this. And every American, every Georgian, Republican, Democrat alike should have that same level of anger. Mr. President, it looks like you likely lost the state of Georgia. We're investigating. There's always a possibility. I think you have the right to do it, of course. What you don't have the ability to do when you step up and say this is stop inspiring people to commit potentialized violence. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get shot. Someone's going to get killed. And it's not right.
So back to...
okay, so just to be clear,
That is P126, which is a video embedded in a tweet in plaintiff's 148.
and that's submitted. Do you object, Mr. Nesbitt?
Yeah, I do. Look, I mean, as a former Secretary of State who's received death threats, violent sexualized threats against my mother, my daughter, and my wife, I'm empathetic to this. But this is an out-of-court statement intended to prove the truth of the matter asserted, and highly inflammatory, should not be part of this hearing.
So the court rules it was adopted by President Trump when he decided to tweet it to however many followers President Trump has, which I assume is many. And so I'm going to allow it.
And Your Honor,
I would submit that it's an improper inference to say that President Trump adopted this as his own.
He tweeted this statement, okay? Whether that's illegal adoption or not, I'm going to allow it in based on the fact that he's the one that has publicized the statement using his Twitter account, or whatever they call it now.
and Your Honor, it's not that we're offering it necessarily for the truth of the matter asserted, although we're happy to do that as well. It's to show President Trump's state of mind and his communications to his supporters, and that's why I wanted to come back to this tweet on page 27 of Exhibit 148, which is the tweet where President Trump retweets this video that you just saw. Rigged election, show signatures and envelopes, expose the massive voter fraud in Georgia. What is Secretary of State and at Brad Kemp, GA, afraid of? They know what we'll find. And there's just more of these, so I'll skip over. So page 33, tweet from December 10th, 2020, 9:24 a.m. The Supreme Court has a chance to save our country from the greatest election abuse in the history of the United States. 78% of the people feel, no, the election was rigged. 3:28 p.m., December 11th. If the Supreme Court shows great wisdom and courage, the American people will win perhaps the most important case in history, and our electoral process will be respected again. December 11th, later in the day, 11:50 p.m. The Supreme Court really let us down. No wisdom, no courage. So let's fast forward to December 19th, and this is on page 41, and you've seen this tweet already. But it says, Peter Navarro releases 36-page report alleging election fraud, more than sufficient to swing victory to Trump. At great report by Peter, a great report. Statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election. Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there, will be wild. And then this is the other embedded video that we were talking about, Your Honor. It was played in part in opening. I believe this is, the embedded video is Plaintiff 73. And the important point here is it's released the very same day, right after, basically, the will be wild tweet on December 19th.
I'm going to watch it first before I go on into this building.
So that was a video that President Trump retweeted on December 19th to his followers.
And we'll admit if it's not being offered for the truth and understanding.
And that's Exhibit 1, or Exhibit 73, Your Honor. And I'm not going to go through the tweets that Mr. Olson put up, where he showed the number of times between December 19th and January 6th, where President Trump tweeted out about the rally on January 6th. And just moving to January 5th, this is page 75 of Exhibit 148. Donald Trump, 10:27 a.m., see you in D.C. 11:06 a.m., the Vice President has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors. 5:05 p.m. on page 76, Washington is being inundated with people who don't want to see an election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats. Our country has had enough. They won't take it anymore. We hear you and love you from the Oval Office. Make America great again. 7 minutes later, 5:12 p.m., I hope the Democrats, and even more importantly, the weak and ineffective rhino section of the Republican Party, are looking at the thousands of people pouring into D.C. They won't stand for a landslide election victory to be stolen. January 5th, a few minutes later, I think, 5:25 p.m., this is page 77, Antifa is a terrorist organization. Stay out of Washington. Law enforcement is watching you very closely. At Department of Defense, at the Justice Department, at DHS Gov, at DHS_Wolf, at Secretary Bernhardt, at Secret Service, at FBI. Fast forwarding to 1 a.m. in the morning, January 6, 2021, this is page 80 of the exhibit. If Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency. Many states want to decertify the mistake they made in certifying incorrect and even fraudulent numbers in a process not approved by their state legislatures, which it must be. Mike can send it back. Later that morning, 8:17 a.m., states want to correct their votes, which they now know were based on irregularities and fraud, plus corrupt process never received legislative approval. All Mike Pence has to do is send them back to the states, and we win. Do it, Mike. This is a time for extreme courage. And it wasn't just tweets that the president was sending out over this period of time. I want to show clips from two speeches. The first is Plaintiff's Exhibit 99. This is a speech by President Trump from December 2nd of 2020. That I think has been admitted or will be admitted pursuant to this court's order.
So 99 will be admitted. Did you say it's clips or the whole?
It's a clip.
Okay. And I just want to be clear in terms of the rule of completeness that the interveners are always welcome to play their parts of the clips so they should choose.
This may be the most important speech I've ever made. I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd elections. If we don't root out the fraud, the tremendous and horrible fraud that's taking place in our 2020 election, we don't have a country anymore.
So move to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit 99.
Admitted.
The next speech is from December 22nd. Again, it is a clip. This is Plaintiff's Exhibit 100.
The truth is, we won the election by a landslide. We won it big. It is historically, mathematically, politically, and logically impossible. It did not happen. He did not win. We won by a landslide. If this egregious fraud is not fully investigated and addressed, the 2020 election will forever be regarded as illegitimate and the most corrupt election in the history of our country.
And so I've shown evidence of what went on between November 3rd and January 6th. So I now want to turn to January 6th itself. And Your Honor, this is where I would play Plaintiff's Exhibit 131, Mr. Giuliani and Mr. Eastman.
I'm going to sustain the objection of Mr. Giuliani and Mr. Eastman. There's been plenty of evidence that President Trump was telling people that Vice President Pence had the ability to do something, and I think it's cumulative, and so I think there's a sense of unfairness since they won't be here to testify.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I wanted then to move to Plaintiff's Exhibit 49, and these are clips from President Trump's speech on the ellipse. It's about 12 minutes in total. We didn't want to submit everybody to the 90 minutes, but certainly if Your Honor wants to watch it, I encourage you to do so. But move to admit 49. I don't think there's any objection to that.
It's been stipulated to, so it's admitted. So this is the eclipse speech, but it's not the whole thing.
It's not the whole thing, Your Honor. And in fact, I have with me, just for ease of reference, a highlighted transcript, which has the clips. So I think that would be good for everybody if they want to follow along. May I approach?
Yes, please.
I'm trying to get the volume right, but these are so variable, so you gotta hold on for a second sometimes. So I hope I'm not gonna blow anybody's ears out here.
people here, and I just want them to be recognized by the fake news media, bring the cameras, please, and show what's really happening out here, because these people are not going to take it any longer. They're not going to take it any longer. All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's death involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. Today I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election, and we won it by a landslide. This is not a close election. We will not let them silence your voices. We're not going to let it happen. Not going to let it happen. Thank you. And Rudy did a great job. He's got guts. You know what? He's got guts. Unlike a lot of people in the Republican Party. He's got guts. He fights. He fights. And I'll tell you, thank you very much, John. Fantastic job. I watched. That's a tough act to follow, those two. John is one of the most brilliant lawyers in the country, and he looked at this and he said, what an absolute disgrace that this could be happening to our Constitution. And he looked at Mike Pence, and I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All he has to do, this is from the number one, or certainly one of the top constitutional lawyers in our country. He has the absolute right to do it. We're supposed to protect our country, support our Constitution, and protect our Constitution. States want to revoke. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to recertify. They want it back. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify. And we become president, and you are the happiest people. And I just spoke to Mike. I said, Mike, that doesn't take courage. What takes courage is to do nothing. That takes courage. And then we're stuck with a president who lost the election by a lot, and we have to live with that for 4 more years. We're just not going to let that happen. We gathered together in the heart of our nation's capital for one very, very basic and simple reason: to save our democracy. We want to go back and we want to get this right, because we're going to have somebody in there that should not be in there, and our country will be destroyed, and we're not going to stand for that. If this happened to the Democrats, there'd be hell all over the country going on. There'd be hell all over the country. But just remember this: you're stronger, you're smarter, you've got more going than anybody, and they try and demean everybody having to do with us. And you're the real people. You're the people that built this nation. You're not the people that tore down our nation. And Republicans are constantly fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. It's like a boxer. And we want to be so nice. We want to be so respectful of everybody, including bad people. And we're going to have to fight much harder. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. Because you're sworn to uphold our Constitution. Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious...
I blame Mr. Gessler.
Bring it.
No, maybe just
I think that's President Trump's fault, actually.
It's going to start back up. Start beginning again. Can you put on yours? Start up. Wait. So it's not yours. It's like, no. I can get it. It's 49. 49. may get a little repeat here, but
4 more years. We're just not going to let that happen. We're gathered together in the heart of our nation's capital for one very, very basic and simple reason: to save our... Republicans are constantly fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. It's like a boxer. And we want to be so nice. We want to be so respectful of everybody, including bad people. And we're going to have to fight much harder. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. Because you're sworn to uphold our Constitution. Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country. Our country has been under siege for a long time. And by the way, Pennsylvania has now seen all of this. They didn't know because it was so bad. They had a vote. Now they see all this stuff. It's all come to light. It doesn't happen that fast. And they want to recertify their votes. They want to recertify. But the only way that can happen is if Mike Pence agrees to send it back. Mike Pence has to agree to send it back. And many people in Congress want to send it back. And think of what you do. Let's say you don't do it. Somebody says, well, we have to obey the Constitution, and you are. Because you're protecting our country and you're protecting the Constitution, so you are. But think of what happens. Let's say they're stiffs and they're stupid people, and they say, well, we really have no choice. Even though Pennsylvania and other states want to redo their votes, they want to see the numbers, they already have the numbers, go very quickly, and they want to redo their legislature. Because many of these votes were taken, as I said, because it wasn't approved by the legislature. You know? That in itself is, and then you have the scam, and that's all of the things that we're talking about. But think of this. If you don't do that, that means you will have a president of the United States for 4 years with his wonderful son. You will have a president who lost all of these states. Or you will have a president, to put it another way, who was voted on by a bunch of stupid people who lost all of these states. You will have an illegitimate president. That's what you'll have. And we can't let that happen. The radical left knows exactly what they're doing. They're ruthless, and it's time that somebody did something about it. And Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you, I will tell you right now. I'm not hearing good stories. Make no mistake, this election was stolen from you, from me, from the country. So, I mean, I could go on and on about this fraud that took place in every state. And all of these legislatures want this back. I don't want to do it to you because I love you and it's freezing down here. But I could just go on forever. I can tell you this. So when you hear, while there is no evidence to prove any wrongdoing, this is the most fraudulent thing anybody's. This is a criminal enterprise. This is a criminal enterprise. The Republicans want to have a Republican Party. They want to play so straight. They want to play so straight against the United States. The Constitution doesn't allow me to send them back to the states. I'll say yes, it does, because the Constitution says you have to protect our country, and you have to protect our Constitution, and you can't vote on fraud. And fraud breaks up everything, doesn't it? When you catch somebody in a fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. So I hope Mike has the courage to do what he has to do, and I hope he doesn't listen to the rhinos and the stupid people that he's listening to. We won the election. This was a landslide. He said it's not America you can challenge the election. This is the most corrupt election in the world. This is not just a matter of domestic politics. This is a matter of national security. If we allow this group of people to illegally take over our country, because it's illegal when the votes are illegal, when the way they got there is illegal, when the states that vote are given false and fraudulent information. I think one of our great achievements will be election security, because nobody until I came along had any idea how corrupt our elections were. And again, most people would stand there at 9 o'clock in the evening and say, I want to thank you very much. And they go off to some other life. But I said, something's wrong here, something's really wrong, it can't happen. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. So we're going to we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give, the Democrats are hopeless, they never voted for anything. Not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America.
So that's, I think it's already admitted, that's Plaintiff's Exhibit 49, these clips from it. I'd now like, see if this works this time. Go to the January 6th report, which is the findings, Plaintiff's Exhibit 78. Finding 315, and this is page 96 of the exhibit. At 1:10 p.m. on January 6th, President Trump concluded his speech at the Ellipse. By that time, the attack on the U.S. Capitol had already begun, but it was about to get much worse. The president told thousands of people in attendance to march down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol. He told them to fight like hell, because if they didn't, they were not going to have a country anymore. Not everyone who left the Ellipse did as the commander-in-chief ordered, but many of them did. The fighting intensified during the hours that followed. I'd like to go back to Exhibit 148, which is a compilation of tweets, and see one that we've seen quite a bit already. This is the 2:24 p.m. tweet from January 6th. Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth. And then I'd like to show, Your Honor, some additional clips from Plaintiff's Exhibit 94, which has already been admitted. And some of these we've seen, but not all, I don't think. And I'll show another one. And now I'd like to move to Plaintiff's Exhibit 6. And I believe this will be admitted per the October 27th order. This is a very lengthy video. It's footage from the camera taken on top of the Capitol, looking down. I just have a few clips. It's nice to see because it has, I think, the timestamp. And Mr. Olson reminded me I did not move to admit Exhibit 100, which was the December 22nd Trump speech, so I would like to move to admit that.
Admitted. And then we're on E6, you said?
Correct, Your Honor.
That's also admitted.
And there's no sound here, but you can see the timestamp in the upper left. And it'll skip a few as we do the clips, but you'll see it in the timestamp. So right now, this is roughly 4 minutes after that tweet. 10 minutes. $20 minutes. And a little over 30 minutes. And then the question I'd like to move on is what President Trump was doing during this time, besides putting out some tweets. And here again, I'll go to the January 6th report findings, page 16, Exhibit 148. Oop. 78.
I think you said one.
Yeah, I was mistaken. It's 78, Your Honor. Finding 55. Once Trump returned to the White House, he was informed almost immediately that violence and lawlessness had broken out at the Capitol among his supporters. Then page 36, finding 120. Sorry, this one's a little longer. From the outset of the violence and for several hours that followed, people at the Capitol, people inside President Trump's administration, elected officials of both parties, members of President Trump's family, and Fox News commentators sympathetic to President Trump all tried to contact him to urge him to do one singular thing. One thing that all of these people immediately understood was required: instruct his supporters to stand down and disperse, to leave the Capitol. As the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates, President Trump specifically and repeatedly refused to do so, for multiple hours while the mayhem ensued. Chapter 8 of this report explains in meticulous detail the horrific nature of the violence taking place that was directed at law enforcement officers at the Capitol and put the lives of American lawmakers at risk. Yet, in spite of this, President Trump watched the violence on television from a dining room adjacent to the Oval Office, calling senators to urge them to help him delay the electoral count, but refusing to supply the specific help that everyone knew was unequivocally required. As this report shows, when Trump finally did make such a statement at 4:17 p.m., after hours of violence, the statement immediately had the expected effect. The rioters began to disperse immediately and leave the Capitol. Go to page 6.
Your Honor, if I haven't stood up for a while, so it feels like I need to stand up and make an objection. I don't even know where to begin on this one. How do we cross-examine? How do we examine any of this evidence that contains speculation and opinion in this? This is a finding that characterizes or exemplifies the very worst aspects of the January 6th Commission. So we object to it.
Would you like to just have a continuing objection to the January 6th report findings, or do you want to get up and...
Some I feel very strongly about getting up, and this is sort of one of them. Your Honor.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you make whatever objections you want.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So we're going to page 6 of the findings, finding 24. President Trump had authority and responsibility to direct deployment of the National Guard in the District of Columbia, but never gave any order to deploy the National Guard on January 6th or on any other day, nor did he instruct any federal law enforcement agency to assist. Going to page 40 of Exhibit 78, the findings, going to finding 134. At 3:13 p.m., President Trump sent another tweet, but again declined to tell people to go home. I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order, respect the law, and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. Almost everyone, including staff in the White House, also found the president's 2:38 p.m. and 3:13 p.m. tweets to be insufficient because they did not instruct the rioters to leave the Capitol. Evidence showed that neither of these tweets had any appreciable impact on the violent rioters, unlike the video message tweet that did not come until 4:17, finally instructing rioters to leave. Neither the 2:38 nor the 3:13 tweets made any difference. And then finally on this, Your Honor, page 100, finding 331. It was not until it was obvious that the riot would fail to stop the certification of the vote that the president finally relented and released a video statement made public at 4:17 p.m. And I'd like to show a Truth Social post, I don't think it's called a tweet, from 2 years later that goes to President Trump's state of mind. This is a Truth Social post, December 3rd, 2022. I believe it's admissible under Your Honor's 1027 order. So we would move to admit Plaintiff 74.
Admitted.
So, with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception in working closely with big tech companies, the DNC, and the Democrat Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. And Your Honor, there are some additional findings at some point that we would move into evidence from the January 6th report, but I don't want to take up people's time reading those today, but those are the ones that I did want to present.
Okay. Is that the conclusion of
It is.
the presentation today?
It is, Your Honor.
Okay.
I have nothing new to present, Your Honor, but I was able to take notes while Mr. Grimsley was talking, and I think we still need to have P49 admitted officially.
That's the
In lip speech, I don't think, we talked about it later, but it wasn't admitted.
Okay, it's admitted.
And then the only other exhibit that I showed in opening that we'd like to move for admission is the first portion of P109. This is a stand back and stand by comment that Trump made. You would rule the rest of that video clip had hearsay, but the Trump section was admissible. That's what we played, and we would move to admit that section of P109.
That's admitted, but you will, at some point, need to put all the exhibits that have to be dealt with, but you'll need to make sure that only that clip is submitted.
Yes, we will. And Your Honor, is it your preference that we revise P49 or we make a new, P109, or we make a new exhibit with just the clip?
I think revive, when you actually submit P49 at the end, just have it be what was allowed in.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. That's all we have.
Okay, so since we have a few extra moments, I think that the Mr. Kessler, one of the things that you had mentioned at the beginning of the day was that there was the pending question on specific intent, your motion, which I think was largely agreed to by petitioners with some caveats.
I'm not sure if it was quite a motion, Your Honor, or more like a trial, but I just wanted to put that.
Yeah, it's clear that specific intent is going to apply to this case. Exactly how that plays out with the nuances that the petitioners want, something that I will rule on when I make the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and I will address your First Amendment arguments regarding Brandenburg at that time as well.
Thank you.
Is there anything else we need to address before we stop for the day?
Not from petitioner perspective, thank you.
Mercifully, no from us.
Okay, so we will start again at 8 o'clock. Does that work, and is that the plan with your witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Keeney will be our first witness tomorrow.
Okay, and are you thinking, other than Mr. Keefe, that you will conclude tomorrow?
It depends on the brevity of cross, but I think it's possible but unlikely.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the interveners are going to be prepared to start whenever it is that the petitioners finish their case absent Mr. Keefe.
Yeah, Your Honor, we're anticipating starting Wednesday, so I guess tomorrow's a little bit of a short day, if I remember correctly, for 4 o'clock.
Halloween, correct.
We probably won't be ready to start tomorrow afternoon if it's done that early, but we'll be prepared Wednesday morning.
Okay, so we will end at the latest on 4 tomorrow. If we finish earlier, then we'll still just go to Wednesday morning, at which point we'll either be finishing petitioner's case or you'll be prepared to start.
Great. And Your Honor, would it be possible to get a time update? Maybe tomorrow morning, no rush on that.
I have one right. As we've calculated, the petitioners have used 4 hours and 34 minutes, and the interveners have used 1 hour and 9 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And I just remind the parties to tell Colin who is going to be live tomorrow, so that security knows. That we are done for the day.